Let me provide a welcome on behalf of Global Green USA and really special thanks to Ambassador Alexander Motzik and our Ukrainian colleagues for co-hosting this special event on a very serious subject, the nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl in the Soviet Union and the Ukraine 25 years ago this month. Let me say just a few words first about Global Green. I expect that some of you are curious as to what Global Green is doing and why we're doing this. Global Green is the U.S. national affiliate of Green Cross International, sometimes called the Environmental Red Cross. It was founded by Mikhail Gorbachev in 1993. We are an environmental, nonprofit, charitable organization headquartered in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, actually, with offices in Washington, D.C., New York City, and New Orleans. We focus on the greatest threats to humankind today: climate change and global warming, protection of natural resources, especially water, and the safe and secure elimination of weapons of mass destruction and related systems. So our work involves projects really at all levels: local, regional, national, and international. To give you a more specific idea of our projects, we've been involved, for example, in sustainable construction, what some call green building, low-income families, and green schools in New Orleans, Louisiana, since the hurricanes of Katrina and Rita in 2005. We were also involved in commercial and restaurant recycling of waste, particularly prototype testing in New York City today. And we've been deeply involved in the safe and sound demilitarization of weapons stockpiles, fairly unique for an environmental group, and the environmental cleanup of military pollution since 1994. Working closely with both U.S. and Russian militaries and the G8 Group of 8 Global Partnership in post-Cold War threat reduction actions. The Security and Sustainability Program is managed out of our Washington, D.C. office here, just down on McPherson Square. Today's program, commemorating the 25th anniversary of the 1986 Chernobyl catastrophe, is part of our International Security and Sustainability Program. We have studied, facilitated, and advocated the nonproliferation of weapon systems, including nuclear weapons, fissile and radioactive materials, biological pathogens, and chemical agents for over 15 years now. We have organized 5 major conferences, what we call forum dialogues, in Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia, on energy, society, and security, of which nuclear power, fossil fuels, and alternative sustainable energy have been a major part. We have also produced an annual solar report card, so-called, on national efforts in solar photovoltaics. So the case of Chernobyl remains very relevant to all of our work on sustainable futures, as do the major accidents at Windscale in Britain in 1957, at 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania in 1979, and now at Fukushima, Japan in 2011. This program is the third in a series we are organizing this year on energy futures, nuclear power, and non-proliferation, to better understand the life cycle of nuclear power. And I know that this is your first forum here at the Ukrainian Embassy, specifically on Chernobyl-related issues. Our first 2 events this year covered uranium mining and Russian perspectives on Chernobyl. And one of our speakers, actually, Natalia Mironova, who's here, spoke on that a couple of weeks ago with our offices on McPherson Square. And that all can be found on our website, www.globalgreen.org. In the coming few months, we will cover uranium enrichment and reprocessing, including mixed oxide fuels, what the engineers call MOX, MOX, the economics of nuclear power, spent fuel management, including storage and transport, and risk assessments, including terrorist threats. As President Gorbachev, still our founder and chairman emeritus, has written in the March-April issue of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, and I think there are copies of this that were handed out to everybody, and I quote from that article: "The catastrophic accident in 1986 at the Chernobyl nuclear power station in Ukraine was one of the worst man-made disasters of the 20th century. 2.5 decades later, the nuclear accident offers many lessons for preventing, managing, and recovering from such a horrible event, as well as specific lessons for the further development of nuclear power," end quote. I would urge all of you to read the full text of his article, which is available here and also on the web at the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Our Green Cross national affiliate in Switzerland, Green Cross Switzerland, has just published a study of long-term consequences of Chernobyl and noted, and I quote, "Beyond radiation exposure and cancer risks, the disaster led to the imposition of diverse acute and chronic stresses on the people living around the site," end quote. And you can find this also on the Green Cross Swiss website. This study was just released yesterday, I believe, in both German and English. And little did we know when we planned this event, which started a couple of months ago, I think, or more, with our Ukrainian colleagues, that we would face another major nuclear power crisis, this time in Japan. We are now 300 months after the Chernobyl disaster and are still facing, as you'll hear in the subsequent panels, still facing long-term serious consequences today. We are only 40 days now after the March 11th earthquake, tsunami, and resultant nuclear catastrophe in Fukushima, and will no doubt face similar, perhaps even worse, long-term consequences than Chernobyl. If you followed recent recovery efforts, as we have in Japan, you'll note that current estimates for the Fukushima Daiichi cleanup are in the 10 to 20-year time range. I would also note that yesterday was the one-year anniversary of the BP oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, ironically, and April 22nd is Earth Day. So this week, to me actually, and I'm sure to all of you too, is truly remarkable in important and relevant dates as we all seek to save this fragile planet of ours. I would be remiss if I did not express our sincere condolences today as well to the tens of thousands of victims in the Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, Russia, Europe, Japan, and elsewhere, with the hope that today's event will provide both help and optimism that we will never have to face another crisis like these two. And in order to preclude such natural and man-made disasters, we need to better understand the ongoing consequences, physical, social, economic, medical, of Chernobyl. So we are fortunate to have many experts in the audience today, many of those speaking, some of you listening as well, but I urge you all to participate, ask questions, encourage discussion. And with that, thank you again, Mr. Ambassador, and let us begin the first panel. So I would ask that our first four panelists come up, and we'll rearrange the seating a little bit, and we'll get going in the first panel.